This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Australian National Pigeon Club, known as the ANPC. The ANPC is the leading national organization for fancy pigeons in Australia, bringing together breeders, exhibitors, and clubs from across the country. They promote high standards in exhibition pigeons, support education and judge development, and play a major role in coordinating and supporting shows throughout Australia. Australian fancy pigeons are well respected on the international stage, and the ANPC continues to strengthen that reputation by supporting quality breeding, responsible exhibition, and a strong national pigeon community. For more information about the Australian National Pigeon Club, including affiliated clubs, upcoming events, and how to get involved, visit anpc.org.au. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we have with us Justin Thompson. He's the president of the Electric City Pigeon Racing Club out of Montana. He brought that club back to life, and that's what we're going to be talking about today is how to start a pigeon club, how to bring a club back to life. So Justin, thanks for coming on and talking with us.
Of course, man. I'm really glad to do this. This is exciting.
Give us a little bit of background on how you got into a situation bringing this club back to life.
Yeah, I'll kind of spark notes my background here. I'm a second generation pigeon man. My dad had racing pigeons from when he was in his teens. So I just was born with pigeons. He passed away when I was in high school. I shortly, for about 7, 8 years, got out of pigeons completely. I went to North Dakota to work. I moved home, got back into pigeons. I was in show pigeons for a few years. I helped run that club. That kind of fizzled out. Montana's such a big landmass. Everybody's so spread out. It's just kind of hard to have a show club. It takes a lot more work when people are coming in from hundreds of miles. So that fizzled out. I ended up getting some pigeons from an old timer about 2 hours south of me. He just kind of sold me a kit. I wanted to fly. Went and got the kit, started training them, and I was like, you know what, we should race these things. And I knew there was still some guys here in town that had pigeons that were just flying for fun. And I just kind of started calling them one by one, cornering them, and asked if, hey, if I could do this, if I could get this club going, would you guys join? And that's kind of how it started. I just knocked over one domino. Once that one fell over, I went to the next one and kept, like, hey, we can do this. I can manage it. I can figure out a way to, you know, kind of jump the cost hurdle because it's an investment, nowadays with the electronic clocks. But once I did that, I started just kind of beating the bush and figuring out who has pigeons, even if they're not really flying them, if we can get them into it. And yeah, I started with just me, and we have at our last meeting to kick off our young bird season, like I guess the inaugural meeting, we had 13 or 14 different actual flyers that will register with the AU.
So when you first kind of got it started, was this just people that you personally knew who had pigeons and then kind of from their foot in the door sort of thing?
Yep, exactly. So he's a really good friend of mine. He was a friend of my father's. He had pigeons. They raced way back, and he was doing the one loft thing. Uh,
Mm.
so he was the first one that I kind of, I was like, hey, let's get these things up in the air for ourselves. Uh, I got him, and then there was another guy that I'd lost contact with for several years. I tracked down his number, and I called him, and just a little persistence. I was kind of a thorn for a lot of people. You know how it is when you have pigeons, dude. It's
Mm.
a it's a hook. It's if you still have them, you love them, you're doing the work. Let's have fun with it. And I would just kind of push that onto them, and finally they're like, yeah, you know what, let's do it. You sound like you got it panned. Let's try it. So the first ones were some people that had birds, weren't doing anything with them. uh I was lucky. I hired a kid as my farm hand. He ended up being one of my really good friends. I got him into pigeons, and then yeah, I just started picking people off that I heard had pigeons, and I just would chase it. I was like a little private detective. uh and I would figure out if they had pigeons. I would call them. I wasn't trying to harass anybody, but I was definitely like, hey, I got something to sell. Are you gonna buy it or not? So that's kind of how it started.
Whereas this was all just like you campaigning then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yep. I would get I would get a tip and I would chase it.
There was a club there, the Electric City Race Club. And how long has that been
Yeah.
down for?
So that club, I think, so I'm just remodeling the race trailer and the plates on it expired in 2001, and that's back when you couldn't do permits. You had to do yearly registrations. So I'm guessing 2001, 2002.
Oh, okay.
So 23 years.
What was the main cause of the club dying out originally?
So I I don't know for certain. I'm guessing it would have had to have been dues or race fees. Like I said, we're all, I'm from one of the members, I think he was from Chinook. I think that's like 90 miles away, and you're knocking clocks off. That's just expensive. And I know there's ways you can still do it. Um, but I'm guessing just everything piled up, and you lose, you know how it is. If you have a club and you have the heartbeat of the club and that guy moves on or doesn't want to do it anymore, you kind of, you fade away. So I guess I couldn't really tell you the exact reason of why it died out, but yeah, it didn't. That's about the last year I think is 2001, 2002.
And so when you were kind of fishing out people, did it kind of come into your head about either, A, like starting a new club, or B, like revising and bringing back the Electric City Race Club? And, why did you choose the route of bringing back the old club instead of starting a new one?
Guess I kind of did a little bit of both. I think I'm trying to remember what the old race club was. I think I'm probably more on grounds of just starting fresh. So I guess to answer that, yeah, I just knew that nobody was around really to I guess, let's see, how should I put that wanted to do like be the president of it. It's a lot of work, I get. And so to answer that, yeah, I just went with it. I don't know. I didn't really think about that, honestly. I was just like, you know what, let's do it. Let's start one, whatever that may be. If I do take some of the old
Okay.
ideas, I'll do it. If that's easier. If not, it might just be easier to go completely on a different route. I'll do that.
So are you kind of reusing some of the old like bylaws and rules and stuff
So,
like that?
yeah, good question. I adopted everything from the AU pretty much. We did add at our last meeting, I think it was pretty much unanimous. We'll just take what the AU says and we'll go with it. We did trying to think, we didn't do too much new outside of that. We just what the AU said,
Mhm.
we did, if that answers your question.
Okay, so that's a big part of it right here, of course. So speaking of the AU, what was that whole process like, and how does someone go about getting set up with the AU with the race club?
Yeah, that was easy. I just called ahead, asked kind of what I needed to do. They gave, you have to do a charter application, and I think it's $25. And then at our
Okay.
meeting, we all filled it out as one. Um, I had them just pay me, and then I paid it all in one. I called over the phone to them. It's a little faster. She said I guess, didn't necessarily say that she liked it better than the other. She said it was just a little easier for me to read it to her. I sent it to her in email, and we did it over the phone via credit card versus snail mail. But that was easy. You pay your dues, you send them a check or call them, pay it over the phone, and pay your charter fee, and then they get you set up for the rest of it. It's super simple.
And equipment and stuff like that, was that kind of a bear getting set up with?
Yeah. So that was yeah, that's a good question. I thought this whole thing was gonna come crashing back because I was telling all these people, I was like, yeah, we can get it. We can get it all. I was like, clocks can't be that much. That was one thing I was a little faster in delivering my pitch than I was on the research side. So I was, I thought the cheapest one that I could find was the Benzing M2. We really wanted the live or what is that? Where like you don't have to knock the clocks off after. I can't think of what that's called, but
Yeah.
it's all done electronically. You don't have to come back. Uh, so I was about ready to pay, I think, about $1,800 for that system. And then I was stumbling around on Google or YouTube and I found the top pigeon clocks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. They are now they're 800 bucks a piece, but they do it all. It's all, you can finalize the race. You don't have to knock your clocks off. It's live. Um, and it's all on the app. So we know when it finalizes a few minutes after we close the race. It's super awesome for the price. You can't beat it, in my opinion. Um, so I bought a few of those last year, uh, and we used those. We gave them out to members and to test them, and we loved them. So as far as the cost goes, that's the way we fixed it. We're buying the same thing that the M2 will do essentially, and I'm not saying that to, talk down on one at all. Just for a guy starting a club,
Yeah.
anytime you can save some pennies and still do the same thing, I'm all in. So we did that, and that really helped us as far as our upfront cost. It, almost cut it in half.
Oh wow. Yeah. Did you look for any kind of used clocks at all, or was that basically the best route for you guys to go overall then?
So I did. I was on the auction sites constantly because I was just going to buy one for myself in the beginning. I was like, oh, I guess I can just time my own stuff. And before this, I was trying to link up with the Idaho Falls. I was trying to get my birds to them, and then they'll take them further, and so on and so forth. Uh, but I was just looking at that, and I was like, man, it's really hard for me to justify that kind of cost right now when, I don't even know if I'm going to have anybody to do it with. Is it just going to be me? Is this something that I'll get into and fizzle out? Um, so I ended up, I did look a lot for used clocks. That was my first thing. I was on Marketplace, like I was moving the little dial all over, and I found a couple. Nothing really, fizzled, or nothing really came to fruition, which for the better. And then I was like, you know what, I'll just go with these ones. And how I afforded those actually, because I ended up buying a few at a time, is I did a fundraiser for my club in Montana. We're very pro Second Amendment. So we did a gun raffle. I fronted the money for a gun raffle, or for a gun. And then I did a select number of tickets, I think 200 tickets. They sell like hotcakes. We sold them, my friends and I, and some now club members helped me sell them. And we were able to buy, I think, 4 or 5 clocks in the beginning, and a computer, pay for any of the weird stuff it is to the little things that you need to, start a club. There's always small things. And so that was our biggest deal, is fundraising and how to do it. So that really helped. We couldn't have done it without that.
That's a pretty successful fundraiser to buy multiple clocks and
Oh
the
yeah.
computer and get all that stuff put together. I mean,
Yeah. And it works too, and people are we also are doing a youth race, so that helps too, because
okay.
sometimes people are like, why am I buying a raffle ticket for your, hobby? But it's like, well, it's not just about us, because we're trying to get the sport further. It's not just me. My daughter flies, and we're trying to have some of her friends fly, and there's other kids. We're really trying to do a youth race. That worked. I mean, I couldn't believe the support we had. And people are fascinated with pigeons, us as handlers, and even the outside world, even though they can't have them, they're fascinated by them. So that first fundraiser, I mean, that was like, oh, we can do this, and I kind of needed to prove it to the members that were on the fence about it, and once we had that successful fundraiser, I think that really helped.
So when you were first putting this together in campaigns, you got some pigeon people together. Like, how often are you doing like meetings and pitching these ideas to these guys, organizing a fundraiser? Like, what did that look like? How often were you guys getting together? And
That first year, just I'll preface everything I just said with that was our first year, and what I'm
okay,
about to say is our first year too. My our first year, it was kind of last second fundraising. Uh, I have one of the flyers, like I said, is a really good friend, and he works with me every day, so we're always talking pigeons. We're always spitballing. And then, like I said, I run this farm, and uh, another friend of mine whose father is in our club, he comes out and does summer help because he's a teacher. So us three together is just nonstop pigeon talk, and it was pretty much us three there in the beginning that first year that were like, let's get this together. We'll do all electronic tickets. Um, and that was kind of easy because it's just us three. We're with each other for 12, 14 hours a day. We kind of know what we all want. So it wasn't too bad. It was just one, we had to find the gun, source the gun, and figure out like, hey, is this one gonna be worth people buying the ticket, or are they gonna be like, oh, I don't like it? That's kind of our hardest decision on what gun to put up, but so it wasn't too bad in the beginning, actually. But I know we're in a little bit different circumstance because I worked with them, or we're really close, and we didn't have. So after we did the fundraiser, I think I did one meeting in early fall to see if we could actually do it, to kind of show like, hey, we did the fundraiser, it kind of worked. We could probably amplify it next year for more people. So I did one then, and then just one more this winter.
So you also talked about using some IT to kind of
Yeah,
help with the club and everything else. Can you kind of go into that and what you are
yeah,
using and what you're using it for?
yeah, absolutely. I downloaded Chat GPT. I think that's just the generic chat, or like maybe it's the most popular one. I guess I should say. And I would just be I'd have these ideas in my head and I don't know how to like get them out, or I don't have the time to sit and type them or make these PDFs. I did everything in a PDF, and I would just sit there and be like, "Hey, I need to like you said earlier about the AU deal." I would type that in there like, "Hey, what does it take to start a club or like to join the AU?" And it would literally just spell it out for me. So for anybody that's like maybe in my position where you're thinking about uh starting a club, it'll give you everything you need. You can ask it ideas. How do I reach people? Some of them are a little off the wall and probably not, they're probably not going to be like the best for your situation, but it would give you just endless ideas. I used it for, we spoke earlier. I have a lot of new flyers, brand new. I tried to make like a pigeon racing for dummies for your first year. I went through everything from pre-breeding to, if you wanted to run artificial lights, I touched on that, introducing your hens to your cocks, all the way to banding your babies, weaning your babies, trap training. Then I went for the first fly, and then I went from the first fly to the first road toss. And I even did, um, I had it right up like how I road train or how I trap train. I was very open with it. I really didn't hold anything back, and I had it make me a huge deal. I think it was like 14 pages of like info on how I would do things, just if people wanted it. Again, it's whether they like that info or not, it's there. It'll help them. And it put that all into one big booklet that I could print copies of. And I mean, it's just amazing. That saved me. I couldn't imagine how long it would have took me if I had to type all that out.
And that's something that you give to new members in your guys' race club?
Yes, yep, we did our, meeting at Pizza Ranch, February 7th. We had it in I rented a room or asked for a room, and I had them there for people to come, and if they wanted it, they could have it. Some of the
Yeah.
guys are seasoned and flew, so they didn't really care, but I did notice that a few guys actually really liked them, so it worked out.
That's great. I remember we had an interview with somebody who they had just joined a race club and they kept asking questions and it was a lot of like, nah, just figure it out,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah.
really frustrating for him. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
great right there. That's perfect for somebody coming in that's really making it easy for them to come in.
Well, yeah, because 'cause we've all been there, right? We've had like this is coming from I've had pigeons pretty much my whole life, and I've had a few bad years, and I just couldn't imagine what that'd be like if it was like my first time into it. I would be probably very turned off on
Right.
it just because, if you're having poor health, or luckily I've had, great mentors, like I was saying, the friend of my father's who's in the club. He's been, I'm happy we don't have to pay for texts because I would have a huge bill with him. He's been so great
Nice.
for me, but, yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted people to come in. I was like, it's easy to forget all the stuff is like a pigeon man for like, if I'm born into it. So I know things that I forgot, if that makes sense. Like, when people ask me if I'll explain you I could explain to you how to do something, but I know I'm forgetting stuff just because it's like, I've done it enough now, if
Right.
that makes sense. I don't know why I do it like this. Probably because I heard it from, a mentor of mine, and I've just done it now for several years. And it's like, well, I guess I haven't thought about it for a while. So I just wanted people to, it's probably not going to tell you everything you should do, but if you read it, your birds would get down the road. That's for sure.
Are you
So,
using AI for scheduling releases or your guys' flies or anything like that?
yeah. So I think sort of. Well, actually, this kind of goes back to that original question. One of the deals I did use from the old race club is the release points. So I kind of already had that, but I did tell AI, hey, these are my release points. I want to start this day. And then it, just wrote another PDF of what I needed to do. So I've used, I guess, so not necessarily as far as our release points or anything like that. No, that was transferred over from the old club.
And you also kind of mentioned this too. So if someone is trying to, get a club started, they've got the people they found with birds and stuff. Hey, let's all get together. So you mentioned that you guys met. Was that like a restaurant or like a community hall? Because I don't know, you could always meet at someone's house, I guess, but maybe a more neutral place. Where were you guys meeting at?
So I had people come up to my house. I kind of
Okay.
live just north of our city here, out on kind of the middle of nowhere. Not really, but there's no one around. And we just had a barbecue. I kind of told them, I let them look through it at the loft, let them just kind of handle all the birds they want, just come and just relax. It's cheaper. We cooked some pork loins for them and just kind of had a barbecue. I wanted it to be like, yeah, we're all competitive, but at the same time, like if you have a good community, the club will last longer, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I want it to be very family focused. You know, my wife's a great sport. I built on an addition, and the only thing she said was like, "Are you sure it's big enough?" So I have all the sport in
She
the world, and
knows.
I just want, yeah, yeah, she's the best. So, and I want it to be a family environment. I want
Yeah.
people's when we basket. I want it to be like everybody there. I don't want it just to be like the guy or whatever the flyer is has to like sneak away and basket his birds and he's off. I want it to be a very
Mhm.
friendly. I want people to want to hang around. So we just had it up at the house. It was pretty informal. I did, have my talking points that I wanted to get through, and that was mainly the raffle. We can afford this with small members or low members. We can do this, and that was kind of where I did bring some of the old club with us is the release points. We go south down I-15 or I-15 and use very similar release points.
You're talking about, you want this club to be more family oriented, competitive, but on the same page, sort of a thing. Kind of talk about, what you feel is healthy to see in a club, detrimental. Like, what do you think causes a lot of clubs to fail? Is it just this over competitiveness, or is it not, like that book? I think it's something along that lines too. Like I think that book is really great. Like it's really welcoming the new members, because if someone comes in and they get disheartened, then you don't see them again. So I want to hear your
Right.
opinion on someone who's in an unhealthy club, or what are some things to really strive towards, and what do you want to see in a club that you think would be keeping it moving forward?
Yeah. So great question. I think the worst thing to have in a club is, every club you'll probably have somebody that I don't maybe a naysayer. You kind of gotta let it stay at that one person, if that makes sense. You can't It's always hard to appease so many people. It will be nevertheless, but I think in a way you can't. One, you got to learn that you can't make everybody happy. At the end of the day, you're going to do what's best for the pigeons, right? Because if we don't get pigeons to the final race, then you don't have flyers in the final race, and that turns everybody off. So the hardest thing is if there is bad attitudes in the club, you know, that will ruin it fast. If there's people that aren't open to, I guess, maybe new ideas, that'll probably ruin it fast, especially in today's day, I guess, maybe of the club is you gotta have to be kind of have to be open for small clubs anyways. For us, where there's not very many members, you kind of have to hear what people have to say on these off the wall ideas because it might just work. But I think, yeah, to keep it going and to have longevity, I think for small clubs would be those off the wall ideas is like, don't be afraid to try something that's, I guess not very popular. Like, I don't think, a gun raffle for a club is very popular, but it sure works. And it's a way that we can extend the sport and get it out there. But I'd say the things that kill clubs is just like I don't know, grumpy members maybe, you know what I mean, and letting that continue or work its way throughout the whole thing, if that makes sense.
So what about this? So you knew a lot of people to kind of get started with. What if somebody's in a I'm the only person that has pigeons sort of thing, and I don't know if there's other people with pigeons, but but they really want to join into a race club. What kind of tips could you give someone like that who really, is on fire about it, really wants to get it going? What would
Yeah,
kind of be their first step?
absolutely. So one thing that I found is if you're in an area that has anybody that hunts with bird dogs, most of the time they have pigeons that they're training their bird dogs with. That is a really good place to start knocking on people's door or trying to get numbers. Because if they have pigeons and you kind of push it to them, like, hey, you're already doing the hard part. You're feeding them and watering them every day, and you're doing the hard part. Now let's do the fun part of watching them come home from hundreds of miles. I have found people that are just like, I would not expect to have pigeons, and now they're a part of our club. So, yet one, don't lose hope. Don't let the fire fizzle out. I think you can find people. And again, even if it's not a big club, but even if it's just a couple of you and you're racing together, I think it will spread. It kind of did with us. We had a few last year. We flew with three independently, and then now this year we have 13 or 14 flyers. So you can find people. I know it's an old hobby, but I feel like there are still people there. We have a population of 60,000, and we still have that 13 or 14 members. Will we have them forever or for the next foreseeable future? I don't know, but I'm gonna do my best to help those flyers stay into it. I'm okay with volunteering time to help new flyers, and I think if you are that person or you find that person, that's what a club needs, is just somebody that'll be like, they'll put in a little extra skin just to see the club get better. I'm here for the club. Without the club, I can't fly. So I want the club to survive.
Right. That's where we're at right now, right? So you've put the energy in, you've brought this club back to life. And so what's your plans for this club in the future, to keep this from fading out again?
Yeah, so we're going to continue to do the raffle yearly. That'll really help. I want to join in on a 4-H in our unit or our area. I want to, whether it be a show or a race. I just listened to the podcast you released. That was awesome. We're going to do the letter idea this year at our fair. And one thing that we're doing just to spread, like pigeon awareness, if you will, is we all have, a few of us have the live webcams in our loft. I have one in my breeding section, and I'll put it on my landing board. And we'll probably do like 10-mile races from the fair. So certain times of the day, people can come and then they can watch them trap. I found a website that you can have multiple streams at once. I think it's multi-stream, or I don't know what it's called necessarily. I got to brush up on my terminology for that. But so then people can watch the race there, not just watch the release. I think that'll really help. Another good friend of mine who's in the club now, he's a teacher. I think we're going to try something very similar with that for his class. I think what we want to do is not keep this a secret just to our club members. I want to really get it out there, advertise, whether that's legitimate like flyers advertising or just getting it into the public. Because you tell people, I'll have a conversation with people and be like, "Yeah, what do you do?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I race pigeons." And then that takes us on a long conversation, which I will gladly sit there and talk about. So it's got a fascination. Now, is that fascination going to turn into them having a loft? I don't know, but you know, I'll cast my line out there and see if anything bites.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. No, and while you got the ear of the pigeon world right here, is there anything else that you'd like to say, especially to the racing community?
Yeah, I you just never know what idea could take off. And just one I will say is that I'm super thankful for any racing flyer or any pigeon racer that I've ever talked to. They've just been so helpful. They're always so helpful. So keep up the good work in that. It's anytime I have questions with people that I don't really even know, I'll just shoot them a message on Facebook. They always respond. So I love that. If we keep doing that, I think that we can still, I don't know if we'll get a good surge of pigeon racing, but I think we can keep it steady. I really do. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I know that's kind of the narrative is yes, the numbers are falling, but is it truly dying? I don't know.
I mean, stuff like what you're doing, like with Mike Netsky up in Michigan, there's definitely some really great stuff, especially with the youth and everything else, and yeah, using technology to really help us, move forward. I
Absolutely.
think the Pigeon Club racing scene, it hasn't seen its final days. I think that there is a revival that is happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that youth is that's gonna be our biggest deal is getting that next generation, into it, and I know it's a lot of responsibility for the parents, it is,
All right.
but we had a local Shields, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Shields. So they're a big sports store up here. They actually sponsored us and gave a $500 raffle or a $500 gift card for our raffle for our youth race. So that was this year's fundraiser is a to support our youth race.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So off the wall ideas can work. And if you got a guy that's got a little energy, help them out. And you can make a club out of nothing. We kind of did it. I was lucky. I know I had pigeon handlers here still, but I think they're out there, man. They're just keeping to themselves.
You got to find them. I mean, the little town that I live in up here, it was just kind of I'll just try it sort of a thing. I took some pigeons to the swap meet. And when I had them up at the swap meet, I had so many people coming up and being like, "Oh yeah, I got a loft of racing pigeons," and like, really, like I've been up here for years, and I had no, and so many people, I'm just like, all this time, like, we could have been best friends, man. Where have you been? But like you say, they just kind of have the pigeons and keep to themselves. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's different
Yeah,
ways of putting it
absolutely.
out there. You never know.
I would always kind of do it like, when you were a kid and you're like grounded or you're out looking out the window watching all the other kids in the neighborhood play. That's kind of how it is. If you can be the kids out on the street, the other kid will come and play. Like you gotta just get it
Yeah,
started. The others will come, man. It's the
yeah,
field of
yeah.
dreams. You build it, they'll come.
Yeah, do the
So
releases in big public places. I swear that's a really great way to just,
yeah.
drum it up and everything else. So does your club have a Facebook page?
Yes, we do have a Facebook page. It's Electric
Okay,
City Racing Pigeon Club. I try to be very active on it. I try to like write little articles and always post stuff. A lot of
cool.
our club is so far great. I love every member there. I've known them, which helps. I've got to know them, which is
Mhm.
great. They've all been super helpful. So that is, I don't think all clubs are like that. I'm very blessed to have a good club, but everybody's active on that Facebook page. I'm trying to share it as much as possible to get the news out, and my friends know who I am, so they always help and share it. So, but yeah, it's Electric City Racing Pigeon Club.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks so much for, coming on the show and talking, man. And I wish you the best of luck with your guys' club, and I hope you have a good racing season.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on.
This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Australian National Pigeon Club, known as the ANPC. The ANPC is the leading national organization for fancy pigeons in Australia, bringing together breeders, exhibitors, and clubs from across the country. They promote high standards in exhibition pigeons, support education and judge development, and play a major role in coordinating and supporting shows throughout Australia. Australian fancy pigeons are well respected on the international stage, and the ANPC continues to strengthen that reputation by supporting quality breeding, responsible exhibition, and a strong national pigeon community. For more information about the Australian National Pigeon Club, including affiliated clubs, upcoming events, and how to get involved, visit anpc.org.au. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.